Hello, everyone. Welcome to the HER HCAI seminar series. I'd like to welcome our cybersecurity AI expert, Dr. Ilo Ukwandu, for his talk on artificial intelligence tools, a honeypot for students on their learning journey. Just to note, if anybody has any questions, please type them into the chat and we can answer a few towards the end. Thank you very much. I'll hand you now over to Ilo.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'll get started in earnest, and I hope. Can you see my screen? Can you all see my screen? Hello?
Hi, Ilo. I can't see your screen. I can see you. Let me check. We'll toggle it now. There we are.
Okay. Hang on, let me share it again. I think it was slow a little bit. I see it now. Yeah?
Yes.
You can see my screen?
Yes, Ilo. Yeah, we're good to go.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm here to present on the topics AI tools, a honeypot for students on their learning journey. Yeah, first of all, how just my outline. I won't take your time because I have 15 minutes to present while I take your question and answer. I'll first of all define the concept of honeypots and then AI as a tool, and then AI tools, the good, the bad, the ugly. I know some of us will be wondering, what is honeypot? I'm going to define honeypot from the concept of my own field, which is cybersecurity, because that's where I drive my definition from. Irrespective of whatever honeypot my own definition will come from my own field, which is cybersecurity. I just have this diagram to let us know a little bit of what we mean by honeypots. In the if you look at this very closely, just let me see if I can get my my pointer with me. Just a minute. Pointers. Yeah, if you see where you have an attacker, what we normally call hackers in the local concept, in the local parlance, but cybersecurity will call it attacker or malicious actor. I'll use it to describe the concept of honeypot. Okay, this is the internet, the publicly facing network, which you all see, which will access the resources stored in there through the web browser, which is the agent. Okay, now we have what's called a firewall. A firewall helps to protect the assets we have at the back end of the internet. The internet is the publicly facing one, which is the front end, which you see. But in the internet, there's also another network which runs at the background. I use that word as maybe the back end type of the network, okay, where the assets that you see on the internet are being stored. Okay. And then by internet, I mean something like a browser, sort of, not just try to explain it much of what happens over the internet. So this is the asset we have the firewall that helps filter the packets that people are maybe your request. When you make a request, it goes to the firewall to check what whether the request is a legitimate request or not. Okay. Now, to be able to protect these assets from being attacked or accessed by the attacker, one will now have what we call a honeypot, which is called a decoy, a fake kind of network firewall system. What it does is that the attacker will see it and they will see, oh, I have access to this person's network. And then he can now begin to interact with it, trying to do some work with it and try to see if he can penetrate and have access to the resources by breaking through the system. So as he's doing that, we call it intelligence gathering. The system will be gathering intelligence of who the attacker is, the IP address, where it is calling from, the kind of tools and the techniques he has. So that keeps the attacker busy while the main network here are safe. Okay, we also have these honeypots here at the other end of the DNS server. Okay, what it simply means that an attacker, a honeypot is a kind of a decoy, okay, that is used to distract the attacker from having access to the original server or the main server. So that's what we call a honeypot in this concept. So I hope that makes you to understand a little bit of what we mean by honeypot, a decoy that represents the main network, but not the main network that are used to keep attacker busy and then gather intelligence from the attacker, understand the scale and everything it has. By so doing, it doesn't have access to the main system, which is at the asset the attacker wants to have access to. That's number one. Number two, I say AI as a tool. We need to understand this very closely that AI is a tool. If you don't understand it, it becomes a challenge. And that's the challenge we have with students, people who use, most of our students, because I'm addressing our students at this point. The challenge most of them have is not seeing AI as a tool. So I say here, AI as a tool offers to everyone the same thing. Knowing which one to use, when to use it, and how to use it is the most important thing. It does not replace human intelligence, and the best use of these two is human in the loop. We have toolbox, just like we have in AI now. We have a lot of tools, AI tools that drive using that now have artificial intelligence that can help us to do so many things. Understanding that these are tools is important. Just like you want to go to work or go to buy something, you can trek, walk down to that place, but either use a bicycle or a car that makes it faster for you. It does not replace your ability to walk to that place. That's why sometimes if you feel the distance is not much or want to exercise, we walk. So your ability to walk is not being replaced by ability to use a car or use a bike. That helps. I hope that helps to bring it closer to you. Why do we say that AI is a kind of a honeypot to students? Because AI has underlying shortcomings which the students don't bring to bear when using it. AI has an inherent bias nature because there are data that are used to train these machines or these software systems. And the data you use to train it is what it gains from, it learns from, and then behaves that way. So if the data is not balanced, the behavior or the outputs from it will not be balanced. And we also look about the issue of hallucinations. Hallucination is AI making up things. You can try it yourself. You discover that, when you ask AI some questions and it cannot get that data because it's not been trained with that data, it just makes up something and gives you an answer. Trust. Sometimes one day I was just trying to look out for somebody I know on the internet. I say, AI, who is this person? Can you tell me more about this person? Just made up so many things and then poured them out. I just laughed over it. The issue of magical thinking. These are part of the challenges that people have. These think that AI can do wonders, do so many things. No, it's not true. It's not true. It just what is trained for. The particular tool is trained for that it can also respond to. And that training depends on the level of knowledge it has had already or data it was used to train it. So that's why AI systems are always continuously learning. There's also the need for validation and verification. This is where the issue lies. I will be talking about this a little bit more because if you don't have a domain knowledge, the issue of verifying and authenticating the output becomes challenging. Okay. Another thing is also it promotes independent learning without improving academic performance. I know it's other up for debate, but we're not going to talk about that now. Okay. What are the goods? I say here that AI tools are very good companion, but just like this dog, they need to be lead to be effective. You know, except that's why I'm always a good advocate of school systems introducing prompt engineering. But that does not replace domain knowledge. Domain knowledge is very primary in being able to prompt correctly because you know that sometimes before you can get something effective from an AI prompt, you will have to prompt a couple of times. You do the first one, it gives you an output. You look to the output, you know that something is missing out there. You give another one, keep refining it, and they keep giving you different output. Sometimes you may even ask an AI, how sure are you about this output? It will say, oh, about 30% sure or 40% sure. But initially, it has given you the outputs. Without you going further to prompts, you have issues. That's why I said it's very effective companion, but he has to be in the lead. Otherwise, it can deceive you and you take it to be what it is. And remember, what you put out there, it seems to be your work. So it credit or discredit goes to you, not the AI to use. Okay, there are some practical use of agent AI which are good for the students. They can use for learning support. Like you want to write an essay, you don't know how to go about beginning it. You can use an AI to ask some questions. It will give you a kind of a face background of what everything looks like. You read through it, you understand it. So it reduces the time you use to read through so many literatures to understand it. So AI could give you some information which you now take more time. But at the first time, it helps to bring you up to speed to really understand what it is because AI tools like LLMs, like ChatGPT, Claude, they're more like aggregator, knowledge aggregator. They just aggregate information and then present it to you. You now look through it and then validate and verify the correctness of them. Or they are used as communication support. You can use to write, correct your grammar, do some kind of formatting. Sometimes a lot of students will have said that when they have some complex terms, they can use the AI to break it down to get them to understand it better. There are research assistants. You can have some literature, pump it into AI, and ask them to summarize it for you. It will summarize and give you what bit and pieces of it, which that helps you to now begin to understand and then begin to read. It can also help to automating tools, making administrative work, streamline query. The bad, you know, some might say, are there something bad of it? Yes, definitely there are a lot of bad in it. The reason is because AI tools, some of them are emerging, they are still in the evolving stages, and they'll keep evolving because the more as it gets input, it keeps reforming it. So that's why we'll talk about the bad of it. Okay, what are the bad in terms of our students? You have the fear of isolation. When people use AI, sometimes they think they've learned something and they feel, oh, that social concept of learning is missing completely. When you dedicate yourself for learning from AI, you lose the social concept of learning. You know, they have there's always a debate on the issue of lack of critical thinking. The essence is because the student will see AI tool, they will get whatever they bring out, garbage in, garbage out. They pick it up, they don't analyze it, they don't go through it, they don't verify it, they just pick it up and they pour it out um as their own right product out of for a particular assignment. Lack of problem solving skills that makes you not to have problem solving because you allow the AI to do the thinking for you and do everything for you. Now it's difficult to measure learning because a student can write an essay from an AI and they submit it as his or her own. Sometimes you look at it, it looks somehow, but if it is, even though you can read smooth, but if you are the teacher of that student, you know that this is not from the student. Okay, so but except you have a tool certified to be used to measure AI usage, you find yourself in a very difficult situation. So person might score a very good score because you cannot verify it, use official tools, but it's not the person's actual work. So you can't measure learning. They learn from bias and false information as kids, and when they learn from this, they go with that as the knowledge they have, which is not true knowledge. That's why I say they have the social skills, empathy you learn from the classroom environment, and somehow students will think they have learned something, but they're avoiding learning. The nitty-gritty of learning, they avoid it. This example of what I'm trying to say, I did some results, some assessments, try to do written assessments, presentation assessment, and practical assessment to see how students perform. You know, you see in the practical assessment, the performance is you can see the up and down level, the performance. But in the written assessment, they're almost at the same level of high grade. So you can't assess learning by this. They look at the presentation assessment because they can use some element of AI to do presentation. You can see the performance there. These are the area of portfolio. So what I'm trying to say is that it's a little bit challenging when it has to do with written assessments and presentation assessments. But in the issue of practical, students fail to perform Exactly. And that shows exactly the level of learning they have and the ability to know to do what they asked to do. Then what are the ugly ones? The challenges about these tools, I say, are one, you can't easily predict the outcomes as they are probabilistic. There are potential, it has potential of affecting your critical thinking ability, your ability to learn, evaluate, and be assessed. And then you also talk about the privacy and security. If you look at when I talk about the issue of a honeypot, I'll come to that later on, how the use of these tools affect your privacy and security. Okay. Then I'll try to run a little bit more. I said, this guy said, if you stop practicing problem solving, your critical thinking won't just stagnate, it will atrophy. That's exactly what it is. So these are part of the ugly aspect of this. Most of us must have read this. There's quite a good number of them coming out now. Why a college student in US said no, he's asking the university to give him back the money because he saw the professor using LLMs to learn. I said, please give me back my money. There's no need to be here. Let me go home and use LLM to learn. Since my professor is also learning from LLM. So these are the bad aspect of it. Okay. How do we control, this is an example of a ChatGPT, platform. You know, when you talk about this, there are so many things you need to look at very closely. If you don't want this to affect your privacy and security while using it, we also need to know that these are part of the learnings we need to know what to put in there, what not to put in there, especially personally identifiable information. They're not something you should put in there. For another one is if you go to data control, if you go to your systems, their profile, go to settings, and then click on data control, you have what they call improve the model for everyone. You have to toggle it off, but at default, it is on. What does it mean? It's learning from what you are bringing in, the data, the papers, everything you are bringing in for you to evaluate for you. It's learning from it to improve the model. And that is how it also learns if you put in your name, personal identifiable information, a lot of things about you, it also learns about it and then improves on it. And of course, once you give out this data, you can't retrieve them back. They have become a public information, which is used to train AI. Then another one is, the issue of the memory. I would advise you not to disable the memory. What it simply means that when you disable the memory, it doesn't store what you've put into it. That's what we're meant to believe, that it doesn't store what you put into it. So it's more of a temporary memory, so it doesn't store it. But if it's enabled, it stores what you have. Where there's an advantage to it, the advantage is that if you keep asking questions on the basis of that same issue, it will use what it has learned before to now answer you. But if you toggle it off, it simply means that anytime you ask questions, it will start all over afresh because it doesn't have the information stored in your memory. So, but if you are doing a research that does not require you providing personally identifiable information, you toggle this in on so that continuously you will now keep pushing in from where you stop. Otherwise, it will start afresh at each point in time. Okay, so it's time to reflect. You know, Are AI tools good? Yes. Like I said, first of all, AI is a tool. We need to understand it properly well. Otherwise, we will ascribe to AI what tools, what they are not. And like I said, knowing which one to use, how to use it, and when to use it is very important. But as on the final notes, I advocate everyone using AI to use it in the domain of knowledge. Use it only where you are knowledgeable enough. Don't use it where you're knowledgeable enough. I don't have time to start talking about report we have, even for my own self, using AI on a place I don't have knowledge of. And the result I have after working, using it, and then giving it an expert to review. So please, that's my advocacy. Don't use AI tools in an areas you're not knowledgeable enough so that you're able to verify the output before you can use it. Because the credit or discredit has to ascribe to your names. So you want to have a peep into the future of teaching and learning with AI, I will advise you, I will just urge you to read this book, which you wrote some time ago about the future of teaching and learning in the context of emerging artificial intelligence technologies. Thank you so much for listening. I hope I've not taken your time. I'll stop at this point. Question and answer then. Sorry, I hope I'm not taking your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ukwandu. We don't have any questions at the moment, but just to, I suppose, highlight some of the really interesting parallels that you made in that talk. The dog, the bike, the car, the toolbox, and also some of the useful tips around data control and memory. Just one question from me to finish off. And actually, there's some questions coming in now as I speak. But do you think, from your expert experience in this area, do you think that humans are equipped to take on your advice and to use the tool in the ways that you're advising? Or do you think, and drawing on, I suppose, the core of this seminar, do you think we need to look at the human computer AI interactions and how they're designed to support the human in acting and behaving and using the tools as you advise, and rightly advise, I would say? So do you think we're equipped just on our own to take the control ourselves as humans, to use these tools safely and ethically and in every way that benefits us? Or do we need to look at the design of these tools to support us better?
Yeah, the first part is, the questions will keep coming is that a lot of institutions are a little bit, there are three different school of thoughts on the use of AI. I did this presentation some time ago. One is the ban group who said, no, we don't want it because they're afraid of the impacts. Okay. The other one is they're sitting on the fence, want to know which way does it swing. Is it going to, is it a hype that will end somewhere? So let us watch it carefully. The other ones are risk takers. They've jumped into it and they swim along the way. The point is, the issue this has done is that there's the amount of training there is not commensurate to what is going on. Another problem is that the tools are very dynamic. They keep changing every time. So some may not have really the resources to keep updating on this, because each day you wake up, you have new tools coming up. So that's a part of the thing people are having. Then on the issue of the design, the truth is, I have to be honest with us. The majority of the people driving this AI are more of capitalists. So they're more of profit oriented than just thinking about the human computer interaction or whatever you're talking about. The only thing they take on board is what to profit them and what give them the profit. And now the point is that it's affecting everything rapidly. Now the question is, do you sit down or do you jump into the? I think one has to jump in and then keep fine tuning and see how you can help, because I'm not sure it's going to stop anytime soon. It's affecting everything constantly. So what I'm trying to say now is, let every research group, like in the area of human computer interaction, begin to work and then look at this and see, how do we make this to fit into the concept we already know. If you don't drive it, nobody listens to you, because everybody's on the race. And like I'm saying now, if you look at it now, in our own area of cybersecurity, it has overtaken so many things. In fact, instead of you having attackers, now AI has become an attacker on its own. So it can automatically attack and then perpetrate so many things. So the point is, if we want to look for institutional policies, or it might take a lot of time. So the point is, let's look at where it affects us and then see the design, the human computer interaction, how we interact with this. But, like I said, to be honest, nobody's listening to you. It's a rat race and it's a capitalist domain. That's what I want to say about that. Sorry about. See, there are some questions you can take on.
Yes, and thank you, Doctor. I think, yeah, I think you've painted the sad reality of it, but equally you've painted the picture that we all need to come together and look at the design of these tools to ensure that it doesn't continue to destroy humans in every sense. I think so. The questions, the big question is, somebody is looking for your book. So the paper you shared, and thank you for sharing it. You're now being propositioned to write a book on it. But yes, thank you for that.
I can get it. It's in Google Scholar, but I don't know
the link to the paper. But Doctor, I think there's people seeing that there's potential here for a book, so you can put that on your to-do list. But a very interesting area. And the comments are coming in. Yeah, thanking you for the session. Very impactful, very interesting, and yeah, just a shout for the paper if we can get the link for the paper, but also to highlight that you've got a potential there for a really interesting book. So thank you, Doctor. I will brilliant. The link has gone in. I will draw the event to a close, and just to say to everybody, thank you, Doctor. That was brilliant. And just to say, hopefully everybody can log in next week for our next her HCAI seminar talk, which will be given by Kyle David, who is an expert in AI governance and privacy. So to complement the talk that we've just had, but brilliant. Have a lovely rest of your day, everybody, and we will catch up next week. And thank you, Dr. Ukwandu. Brilliant. Bye, everyone.